The strangest part isn't Charlie Kirk. It isn't even TPUSA. The strangest part is the lineage behind it. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino wrote a book called Mind War while stationed at the Presidio in San Francisco. Not a self-help book, not a political rant, a blueprint for psychological warfare. Mass persuasion, narrative control, cognitive terrain. And Aquino was also an open Satanist. He never hid it, never denied it.
Aquino and his wife, you are a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. Correct. Now, and how does the Army feel about you being head of the Temple of Set? So you just go about your Army duties and it's fine and okay? Yeah.
Now here's the part people skip past. Aquino didn't write Mind War alone. His collaborative with retired Major General Paul E. Vallely. Fast forward. Vallely sits on the board at Turning Point USA. Vallely sits on the board at Turning Point USA. So take a step back. Strip away the merch, the slogans, the crowd noise. What is TPUSA actually doing? It's not just debating ideas. It's persuasion at scale, changing minds, moving groups, steering perception. And when the same people tied to a psychological warfare playbook are embedded inside a movement built to shape mass belief, coincidence stops being a useful explanation. This isn't about symbols. This is about methods. Because Mind War doesn't care what flag you wave. It only cares that you don't notice you're waving it.
For a few months, we've been trying to figure out why are all these things happening under the Turning Point USA umbrella, whether it's Michael Aquino, the adoption agencies and the children, Erika Kirk with her Romanian angels, these evangelists and the churches, IHOP, the significance of the planes. Every time you turn around, Candace was talking about this plane or that plane or the red plane or the yellow plane. And I'm like, what is this about the planes? Now I understand the significance of the planes. Fort Huachuca, why and what does Fort Huachuca have to do with all this? I have the answer to that also. Satan worship with this dude. And now you probably won't believe me, but I'm about to prove this to you also. The Sascha Riley situation has a lot to do with everything that Turning Point USA is caught up in. So make sure to hit the like button and share this video with everybody you know, including Candace, because I'm literally about to blow the lid off of all of this with Candace's help, because one of her videos is a part of this also.
This guy right here is Michael Aquino. He was a psychological warfare specialist in the U.S. Army from '68 until 1990. He was involuntarily discharged because of allegations of ritual sexual abuse of
tadpoles. This is interesting. Colonel Busher also got kicked out of the Army for the same exact reason. So you have Colonel Michael Aquino getting kicked out of the military for sexual misconduct of tadpoles, and also Colonel Busher with the same exact problems. These are both colonels of the military.
This is a video posted by Erika Kirk at her Romanian Angels charity back in 2013. Colonel Busher III was an Army officer who served as colonel and commander at the Black Sea Area Support Team for U.S. forces in Romania. Now, it's important to note that in November of 2019, a former translator at the base from the 2010s to the mid-2010s filed a criminal complaint with Romania's Anti-Organized Crime Directorate, otherwise known as DICOT. She accused Busher, along with U.S. Master Sergeant Lloyd Sparks and others, of involvement in an organized prostitution and human ring operating within the base during 2012 and 2013. The allegations included bringing women, including tadpoles, onto the base for forced sexual services with American soldiers, with Busher personally benefiting and approving access. The former translator that accused him of this also claimed that this was confirmed by U.S. investigators during a separate probe into fund misappropriation and cited harassment she faced after reporting it. However, DICOT investigated the complaint and closed the case in 2023 without filing charges. So as you can see, two colonels, same problem. And what's even crazier, they both involve Erika Kirk and Turning Point USA.
throughout this time, which he was a devout Satanist and self-confessed neo-Nazi.
The number one thing I want y'all to pay attention to is the ritual. It's the ritual part I'm starting to realize that has a lot to do with all of this. So keep in mind about the ritualistic part of all of this.
But it doesn't stop there. I Googled his name further. Guess what? Michael Aquino, the Church of Satan. So obviously I read about the author to make sure it was him. And it was. And he actually has a couple other books as well. And evidently he was a super rare political military officer in the psychological operations unit. I hate that.
Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino and his wife Lilith are the heads of the world's leading satanic cult, the Temple of Set.
Fort Huachuca is one of the most important military bases in the United States. I know you can't see it clearly on this map, but this is Fort Huachuca, and it sits on the southeastern tip of Arizona, and it borders Mexico.
Right there. That's the second part of this. The first thing is the ritualistic activities going on revolving around all of this. The second thing is Fort Huachuca. What is the significance of Fort Huachuca? It's not just because it's a military base, because everybody in this situation is in the military. It's about the fact of where it sits. It's one in Arizona, and two, it sits on the border of Mexico. And we all know the border mixed with the military puts whoever is running things at Fort Huachuca in a position where they can do whatever they want to do to whoever they want to do it to and easily get away with it because it's right at the border. Back in the day, it was a lot of movies about somebody would commit a heinous crime and the police is chasing them, and then they'll cross the border, and then instantly they don't have anything to worry about. So the border, for two different reasons, to be able to get away with things, and two, migrants.
Today, Fort Huachuca is basically the brain center for military intelligence, cybersecurity, electronic warfare, and surveillance training. This is where Army intelligence officers are trained. If it involves signals, data, drones, or information warfare, it most likely passes through Fort Huachuca.
And everything you hear about Turning Point USA is about data farming, geofencing, but we're not done.
1969, Sascha Aquino joined the Church of Satan.
Just make sure you're on track. Michael Aquino. Everything that happens with Turning Point USA, it always ends up with children, and now we're starting to add rituals to all of that.
The slave to conventions or to propaganda of any sort, for that matter, so that you are in effect a god yourself, responsible for your own decisions concerning matters of good or evil or morality.
And what he's referring to, what they follow, is the Egyptian Book of the Dead. They've kept this, okay? This is what they follow. Spells, rituals. This is what they follow. Spells, rituals. And they do believe in the self. They believe that they can make themselves gods by violating nature. So part of their ritual is to harm the innocent, is to harm the innocent, is to harm the innocent, because that's unnatural. It's unnatural to harm and
it's unnatural to harm tadpoles. I had to beep it out. The key is, according to everything that I'm learning and what Candace is learning, is that in order to become a god in this type of religion or whatever these people are in, you first have to do things that are not natural to humans, because you got to remember, there's a human and then there's a god. So if you want to ascend from being a human to a god, according to them, you have to start doing things that the average human would never want to do. You know how in a lot of these situations, especially involving tadpoles, you'll say, why in the world would somebody want to do something like this? Do these people have a heart? Do these people have a soul? Well, that's the actual point. The worse they do to other people or to tadpoles, the more they actually believe that they will or have arisen to become this God figure. So the worse or grotesque things they do, the better, the higher, or the faster they ascend.
So in 1986, regarding this guy, the San Francisco police began investigating allegations, not surprisingly, of sexual abuse in connection with the Army's Child Development Center. Which is based in San Francisco. A girl came forward in 1987 and she identified him, Aquino, as the culprit. An investigation was launched. The police believed she was telling the truth, but they had to close the case because of insufficient evidence that was found. Even though she was able to describe the house where she was taken to, they said there was insufficient evidence.
Everything that happens in the military just gets thrown up under the rug. To a certain degree, the same things that happen in Romania with the Romanian Angels Project. 2 colonels, both of them being brought up on charges, and both charges get thrown out. And we're going to get deeper into the military aspect of this and why the military aspect actually makes everything work properly.
Now, it's worth noting that Michael Aquino was trained at Fort Huachuca. Yeah, Fort Huachuca, as we've now established, is the hub for intel operations. And there have been a lot of scandals that have happened at Fort Huachuca. And man, did we all endure and survive a psychological operation when Mitch Snow came and told us that he saw Brian Harpole and he saw Erika Kirk.
See, then I had no understanding or idea of how important Fort Huachuca was when Mitch Snow came on her show.
At Fort Huachuca in the days leading up to Charlie's assassination, different days. But man, we were going, what is happening? Why do we feel like the whole internet is screaming at us? Yeah, well, that's the home of Army intel psychological operations, and you should know that. Anyways, we now should discuss why it's just so hard for Turning Point USA to stay away, I showed you this chart, from these trafficking connections, and you're just not going to believe a relationship that they are not severing. I just find it weird, like where
They can't sever the relationships because literally almost, I'll just say almost for the sake of argument, literally almost every last one of these people that are adjacently connected to Turning Point USA has something to do with sexual misconduct. But why? See, this is the reason why I'm doing this video. The why will help you understand. The reason why is because of this ritualistic nature of all of this. It's about the donors. If certain types of people are funding your company, it attracts more of those same people. See, when you become a rest haven for PDF files, more PDF files start coming to you for you to be a rest haven for them also. Next thing you know, everybody in this type of world or this type of community comes directly to you because you have proven yourself as a company to be a rest haven for PDF files. When you earn the trust of any community, whether negative or positive, word of mouth travels, and next thing you know, everybody ends up telling all their friends, and you become the actual place where this community feels the most comfortable working with. So next thing you know, all these ritualistic, Satan worshiping, weird PDF file people start congregating in one place or start funding one company in order to empower their agenda.
what is going on with Harvest Church and Greg Laurie. Here's an article which tells us that Greg Laurie, there's been a number of lawsuits filed against Harvest Christian Fellowship, the founder, Greg Laurie, and also the churches related to alleged abuse of young men.
Every single time. But the main thing that we're starting to understand is all of this is ritualistic. All of this, or a lot of this, has something to do with devil worship. And who does the devil actually want? Your kids.
At a children's home in Romania. Okay, there's 12 lawsuits actually. The original
Romania again. Let me back up. Romania all over again.
The founder, Greg Laurie, and also the churches related to alleged abuse of young men at a children's home in Romania. Okay, there's 12 lawsuits actually, claiming that Paul Havsgaard, he is a former pastor and a missionary at Harvest Christian Fellowship in Riverside, California. So that's that area.
See, everything is mixed with military personnel and pastors over and over and over again. Military personnel and pastors.
Where they're all from, Colvette's from there, that area. He's from Santa Barbara, actually. McCoys are from there. And they're alleging that he abused them at a children's shelter in Bucharest, Romania. The allegations include being tied to radiators, being made to kneel down on walnut shells, being touched inappropriately, and being pimped out for sex. Now, the number of litigants, as I said, has risen to 12, and the law firm that's representing the survivors said in a news release that they are expecting 23 former residents of the home to bring complaints. The most recent complaints were filed in November. The court documents claim that Greg Laurie and the Harvest Christian Fellowship sent funding to Havsgaard, which they obviously did send funding to him while he was there, and they were negligent in supervising him while he was there, despite reports of abuse.
Of course they were negligent because they just want to sweep everything under the rug. So the main context, I just want to make sure everybody understands exactly what's going on. The military is the power, and evangelistic part of this is the direction. It's the rituals. So we have the cult, and then we have the protection of the cult, which is the military. You can't get away with all these things without the military being involved. The cult stuff isn't the biggest part. It's the protection of the cult stuff, which is the military, because they wouldn't be able to get away with none of this stuff if it wasn't for the military.
And so he's offering back that, oh, well, that's a pastor that we were funding. It's not the entire church. It's not fair to come after the whole church for what Paul Havsgaard is being alleged to have done. I'm saying this is just too many times for me. I don't know about you guys. I'm getting Romanian trafficking fatigue. Okay? I'm getting Ukrainian, Romanian trafficking fatigue. It just can't be that all of these military people that are adjacent to the military, go out there in a place where they're perfectly safe. Actually, they're quite immune to prosecution because that's the deal that gets
in Romania.
Is like you can do whatever you want on your base. And I'm going, what the heck is going on here? So I reached out to some people that I know, and I say, what is this strand? I don't know much about the military. Why does this keep happening? So I reached out to some people And I know, and I say, what is this strand? I don't know much about the military. Why does this keep happening? And what they told me, and this is also proven currently right now, a bunch of South Korean women have filed a unprecedented lawsuit against the United States military for the same thing, for running a brothel where they are stationed in South Korea, South Korea.
What does South Korea have to do with any of this? Well, right after Charlie Kirk passed away, the strangest thing was happening. Rob McCoy, which is a pastor, started bragging about going to South Korea right after Charlie Kirk went to South Korea. And when he got back, he got deleted. And we all wanted to know, in the Scooby-Doo mystery team, why was he going to South Korea so much? So this is Rob McCoy talking about going to South Korea.
Heading out after this for Phoenix and then on to Korea on Tuesday. They are trying to start a kind of a turning point, young conservatives in Korea movement. And so they invited me to come, which is going to ruin the entire thing.
Korea needs freedom. And the church is the soul of this nation. It's time to stand for truth regardless of the consequences.
한국은 이 자유가 필요합니다. 그리고 교회는 국가의 양심입니다. 그 대한민국을 지키기 위해서 기독교인들이 일어서야 합니다.
A bunch of South Korean women have filed a unprecedented lawsuit against the United States military for the same thing, for running a brothel where they are stationed in South Korea. And so what they are telling me adds up. It's tracking. What they say is, okay, think of a military base. Anywhere in the world, you have a bunch of men who do not have regular access to women. And what they tell me is that they will typically send someone out who will be a woman. So think of like a Ghislaine Maxwell, to go out and to find them, their interests, their tastes, young women that can be manipulated. That person will often describe themselves as a casting director to go out there and to tell the women to come onto the base. Once they're on the base, anything can happen to them. Like I said, they are afforded no protections from their government, and our government is not going to prosecute the men that do anything on that base. That's how the typical deal works.
So now I'm about to add the last part of this, the Sasha Riley aspect.
And your adopted dad, William Kyle Riley, worked as a pilot and was involved integrated in the Epstein Trump
in all kinds of things.
Yeah, and he worked a lot with Trump and Epstein, correct?
I know that he was around Epstein and worked with Epstein, and I want to say that he flew for Epstein, and if not for Epstein directly, like transporting Epstein himself, he did transport some of the rich people to and from these parties that Epstein and company hosted. It wasn't just him. It was kind of a cabal of several people, and Epstein was the lead coordinator, maybe you would call it. But it's much more than just him as an individual. It was people like him, like Trump, other people, and I can't remember, like how many, but he was handy to have around because he was a part of the process, and he isn't just like an airline pilot or something like that. He can fly anything. He can fly helicopters, fixed wing, smaller aircraft, larger aircraft. I mean, he's that pilot, that multi-purpose guy that could transport whatever you needed. Because in his mind, if he got caught with some people, he could just play dumb. And I was just transporting this guy's kid to, from the, here to there. I didn't know anything.
Did your dad transport the victims most often?
Oh, absolutely.
So more victims than guests. I don't want to call them guests.
I would say more guests than victims, but he definitely transported both.
Okay. And that was either directly for Epstein, like wasn't transporting Epstein so much as Epstein's victims and Epstein's guests.
And the clients.
Yes. The clients.
So earlier in this video, I talked about how Sasha Riley has a lot to do with all of this stuff. And this is how. Sasha Riley's story, and I totally believe it. Let me know if you believe it or not in the comments, but I totally believe it. Remember, I talked about adoption agencies or these adjacent adoption agencies. Sasha Riley's dad adopted him and some other kids in order to rent them out as he flew to these islands and farms. So once he touched down, he got paid to fly the people there, but also he got paid to rent out his adopted children, which brings me to the assumption, because I don't want nothing to happen to me. I don't want to get unalived. I don't want to get sued, and I don't want to get my channel taken down. So I'm just going to say this. This is for entertainment purposes only. But do you remember how Candace Owens talked about how virtually every time Charlie Kirk had a debate at a school, there was a plane that was parked somewhere in that vicinity? Thinking about Sasha Riley's dad, him being a pilot, what if, and this is just what if, because I don't know, I don't want to get in any trouble because we're talking about the military here. What if every time Charlie Kirk had a debate at a college and it was thousands of students, at each time, 1, 2, maybe 5 students mysteriously go missing, end up on a plane going to one of these places Sasha Riley went to? See, with everything I'm learning, the planes are an integral part of all of this. Because do you remember the movie Blink Twice? The only way you can get to one of these islands, because it's not just Epstein Island, there's islands all over the world, and they're owned by billionaires. And there's no police, no cameras, no nothing. So in the movie Blink Twice, just as an example, after they had the events, I think in the movie they were selling art or it was some type of get together or whatever. The guys would go around flirting with the young women.
We're going to my island for a few days. Do you guys want to come?
This is crazy.
And they would do what? Offer the women to fly on their private jet to their personal island. You ladies want to come on my private jet and go to my private island? And if it's some young college students, they're like, hell yeah, I want to go to a private island. And next thing you know, is a plane 15, 20 minutes away, and boom, they're now somebody's slave. Now, I don't have proof of this. I'm just pontificating, because as I was listening to the Sasha Riley audios, the first thing I thought was the planes, the islands. They need the plane. They need the pilot to take everybody to the island. The planes. And remember, these were military planes. And what did I say about the military? That is the protection. See, a military plane can go in different airspaces with no problem versus just a private jet, because military planes and private jets are marked differently. There's certain things that military planes can do and go versus a private jet. So I don't know. I'm just putting it out there for Candace or anybody else to get a hold of more information pertaining to my, I would say, blink twice theory, like the movie. So let's go down the list. The Michael Aquino and the narrative control. We understand that the co-writer of the book that he wrote is on the advisory council of Turning Point USA. The evangelistic churches, that is the cult. So they've come close to taking over almost every major church on the West Coast. Turning Point USA was recently bragging about how many chapters they have in almost every college in the United States. Erika Kirk said that herself at AmFest. And thirdly, I would say most importantly, the orphans, the adoption agencies, and the children of the orphans. Remember, I did a live stream about the baby Amazoning that it seems like some of these places are doing. A young girl ends up pregnant, and then they turn around and coerce her to give the baby away for adoption. And then nobody ever knows where the baby actually went. The significance of Fort Huachuca is because it's right at the Mexican border. That's easy to understand. The Satan worship gives you an understanding of why they're doing this, because a lot of you are just like, but why? I don't understand. These people don't have souls. Well, that is the actual point. I showed you in this video that in order to become a god in their world, not in my world, you have to do inhumane things and actually provoke suffering in order to become this godlike figure. So it's what they have to do in order to ascend. Because remember, I'm all about the why and not about the how. And of course, with the planes, I just explained possibly why every time Charlie Kirk had a debate at a college, there was a foreign or military plane sitting 20 minutes away. And that's my blink twice theory. And remember, this is part 3 of Turning Point USA and the children. I'm going to do a part 4. So make sure to click the link to watch part 1 and part 2, as well as making sure you send this video to whomever needs to see it, especially Candace Owens, Barron, Ian, whoever you think needs to see it, send it to them, because we all are working together to figure out this case, whether directly or indirectly. We all have to work together in unison in order to put these people in prison. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. Hit the thumbs up button and let me know if you really want a part 4. I'll talk to y'all later.